Okay, so right now we're going to go over the financials for Unrivaled Athletics, and I'm going to be honest with you, I had no idea how to shoot a video and present, so this is kind of new to me. So what I decided to do was I'm going to go over the financials paper by paper, because that's the best way to present as I'm going along and talking, since I'm not physically there, but at 36,000 feet up in the air, flying over Canada, November 6th, I believe is when we're actually presenting this. So Unrivaled Athletics is actually a good plan in theory, but not so much in the execution of how they are planning on going about it. So a lot of it is hypothetical. I almost every time I came across a financial data plug-in this business plan, I automatically thought of that insurance commercial. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. So hopefully, as I go through this, you'll kind of start hearing that little voice inside your head as well. So, going over, we're just going to dive in. The business plan calls for a $200,000 loan, from the bank. At least that's what it says at like one point in the business plan, but then as we go through, it kind of just dissolves, and there's investors possibly, there's sponsorships. Some of the things aren't very clear. So let's just working the tripod. Let's just zoom in on that paper. Okay, so now I got that going. So $200,000 from the bank. I apologize for my chicken scratch. So as we break down the $200,000, then we see what they intend to spend that money on. The first bit of it, according to the business plan, is $125,000 in startup, facilities, and equipment. And that's within the first year. They intend to purchase or rent to own facility that is about 5,000 square feet, and within that 5,000 square feet they want to have a turf room, a high-end, high-quality facilities with their equipment, top-of-the-line technology, as I'm sure Chrissy and Courtney will go through later. 5,000 square feet is not much, especially for when you're trying to plan state-of-the-art technology for football and soccer. So that's just some little food for thought to keep in the back of your mind. So going back to the, so $125,000. They also want to pay 3 salaries. They range from $20,000 to $40,000 a year, but just to keep it within the range of this budget, we have to do $20,000 per year for top-of-the-line training, times by 3. So $60,000 just in salary. And remember, this is in a very expensive, very exclusive suburb outside of Chicago. So imagine making just above minimum wage with all the training that you're going to be going through. But I digress. And then on top of that, they project about $5,000 for marketing and advertising. Marketing and advertising. They did mention that they want to do a grassroots effort and do word of mouth towards the later end of the project. So maybe that's something that might need to be reworked as you're trying to redevelop this plan. Is $5,000 to marketing and advertising. Seems kind of light, especially if you divide it out per month. And then they have set aside $10,000 for miscellaneous costs. So that's the first year in basically your expenses, your projected expenses. And if that doesn't get any better, then they also want to pay back $50,000 of the loan. So they're projecting that they will be able, within that first year, to repay back $50,000. And I'm just going to do a little cliff notes, or a little red flag right here. the plan fails to address interest rates of your loan. So they're expecting that they're going to take $200,000 out but not pay any interest back. And so it's, again, this isn't how this works. This isn't how any of this works. You're going to have interest on these loans. And if for some reason you don't have interest on your $200,000, what else are you giving away? Is it a stakeholder, going back to the investment problem that we discussed a little bit before? What exactly, how are you getting $200,000? So that right there puts the total projected expenses at $250,000. I repeat, $250,000 in your first year expenses projected. So going back to, we'll talk about the revenues, projected revenues, so then you can kind of see year to year what they're expecting. Projected revenues, they listed the bank loan when they did their analysis as part of their revenue. But as we know, revenue, as far as I know, is not part of the, you can't count that. It's not an asset, it's a liability. But according to them, the projectors, $200,000, and then they plan, here's red flag alert, going through their month-to-month plans, they plan on sticking solely to the 6-month plans is how they projected the revenue. So they're expecting 150 athletes, and they're also expecting them to pay a total of 107,100 for, so that's 150 athletes, and then they expect them $150 athletes times 119. That's 119 a month. Times that by 6. And that's where we get our 107,100. So they expect to make 307,100. And this is where in their plan they talk about how they make a profit. So they subtract their projected expenses, and you come up with $57,100, which again, I just don't feel comfortable adding that $200,000 into your revenue. They basically said their expenses were a wash, which in a way they were, but as we go through the year, year 2, they don't project their rent or their utilities into their plan, and I wish I could do that for myself, but you can't. So that's year 1. Year 1, they expect that they're going to be making $307,100 in revenue, which seems very, when you're paying somebody $20,000, I'm not sure you can get that. So now we're going to year 2, expenses. Based on the plan, they then want to give themselves a $20,000 raise. Again, wish I could do that for myself, but it just not how this works. So 3 coaches at $40,000. So that's $120,000 in salaries. You have miscellaneous costs remain the same at $10,000. Marketing stayed at $5,000. And then again, projecting their loan repayment at $50,000. $50,000 for projected loan repayment. That gives us a total of $185,200. Again, not forecasting that they're going to be paying rent and utilities. And so it just, you got to factor that in as part of your expenses, especially when you're doing a startup. And so their year 2 revenue, they then expect to gain 75 new athletes. And within that plan of gaining 75 athletes, they're sticking them on the 6-month plan, which again is at $119 a month. And so that then increases the revenue for year 2 to $160, $500 or $650. So their expenses definitely outweigh at $185, $200, outweigh their estimated revenue of $160, $650. So right there is part of your big issue. You don't have enough athletes. The mix, the product mix might also be off. What's the point of having those other 4 plans? So as we continue to go along, that's just year 2. Also part of the plan, they mentioned sponsorships by Dick's Sporting Goods and Nike, and that's not really detailed in financial data. It's just more so we would like to have Nike and Dick's Sporting Goods sponsor us sort of ideal hopes and dreams. So year 3 is a big year for them. As they go through their plan, they don't list a specific when they expect to be profitable. It's anywhere from the end of year 2 to the end of year 3, so, and anywhere in between. So year 3 expenses, a few changes here. They give themselves another $20,000 raise. So now we have 3 coaches at $60,000. So that's a total of $180,000. Marketing gets rolled back to $2,500. Miscellaneous stays at $10,000. And wait for it, for their expected loan payback, they want to pay off the rest of that loan. So they're going to get rid of $100,000 that they don't have, but they're going to do it. And so year 3 revenue, they're going to gain the magic number of 338 athletes. Again, 3-month payment, or the 6-month plan at $119 a month is going to give them $241,332. That's their revenue. And their total expenses was $292,500. So again, their plan puts them in the hole by about $50,000. So 292, 241. Math that out later. So this raises questions on the financial side and some food for thought.